Welcome, weary traveller. Settle in, pull your blanket a little closer, sink just a little deeper into that pillow, and let everything go heavy and still. Because tonight we are going somewhere unexpected, somewhere ancient and disciplined and steeped in a tradition so old that it was already old when most of the world's great civilizations were still working out the basics. Somewhere that will make you feel, within the first 5 minutes, profoundly grateful for your alarm clock, your breakfast, and the fact that nobody is going to ask you to be thrown across a clay ring at 5 in the morning. Tonight we are going to Japan, not the Japan of cherry blossoms and bullet trains and the dazzling neon corridors of modern Tokyo. We are going to a Japan that exists quietly alongside all of that, a Japan of wooden stables and clay rings and centuries-old ritual of hierarchy so precise it determines who eats first and who eats last and who sleeps the longest and who gets up the earliest and who cooks and who is served and who may speak and when. A Japan where two men weighing the combined equivalent of a small car attempt to push each other out of a circle of clay with a ceremony and a reverence that has been essentially unchanged since the 8th century. We are going to the world of the sumo wrestler, and the sumo wrestler's world, it turns out, is nothing like what most people imagine. Not the Hollywood version, not the cartoon version of two large men in loincloths charging at each other while a crowd cheers. The real version. The version of the 4 a.m. alarm and the empty stomach and the 3-hour training session and the enormous lunch and the mandatory nap and the hierarchy so strict it governs every meal, every conversation, every moment of the day from waking to sleeping. The version where the actual match, the thing the entire day, the entire career, the entire life is built toward, lasts an average of 6 seconds. 6 seconds. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Let your shoulders drop and your hands go soft. And let the story carry you to a wooden building on a quiet street in Tokyo where, in a few hours, the alarm is going to sound at 4 in the morning and someone is going to have to get up and start cooking. The world of the sumo stable. The building does not look like much from the outside. It is a low wooden structure on a residential street in the Ryogoku district of Tokyo, the neighbourhood that has been the heart of professional sumo for several hundred years, a quiet enclave of traditional buildings and chankonabe restaurants, and the occasional very large man walking to the convenience store in a kimono, which is a sight that the local residents have long since stopped finding remarkable, but that every visiting tourist stops and photographs with the specific expression of someone who cannot quite believe what they are seeing is real. The building is called a heya, a sumo stable, and it is simultaneously a training facility, a dormitory, a kitchen, a dining room, a school, and a home for every person inside it, from the stable master who runs it to the youngest trainee who arrived 6 months ago from a small town in Fukuoka with a bag of clothes and the particular combination of ambition and naivety that the sumo world reliably produces in people who have not yet been inside one. There are approximately 43 active sumo stables in Japan at any given time, each one affiliated with the Japan Sumo Association, each one governed by the same centuries-old rules and traditions, each one a self-contained world with its own hierarchy, its own culture, its own way of doing things, and its own recipe for the chankonabe stew that is the cornerstone of the sumo diet, and that the junior wrestlers cook every single morning before they're allowed to eat any of it. Which brings us to the hierarchy. The hierarchy, everything flows. From this, the sumo stable is one of the most precisely hierarchical environments in the modern world, which is saying something given that the modern world contains the military, law firms and professional kitchens. At the top is the oyakata, the stable master. He is a retired wrestler, almost certainly a man who competed at the highest levels of professional sumo before age or injury ended his competing career and he transitioned to running a stable. He is the ultimate authority on everything. His word ends discussions. His opinion shapes careers. His relationship with the Japan Sumo Association determines the stable's access to resources, tournaments, and opportunities. In the stable, the oyakata is not merely the boss. He is the father, the judge, the teacher, and the keeper of tradition, all in one person. Below the oyakata, the wrestlers are ranked in a precise and constantly updated hierarchy based on their tournament performance. Every 6 weeks, after each tournament concludes, the ranking list is updated. Win more than you lose, and you move up. Lose more than you win, and you move down. The ranking list governs everything. Who trains first, who eats first, who gets served, and who does the serving, who sleeps in which room, who is addressed with which honorific. At the top of the ranking system sits the yokozuna, the grand champion. The word yokozuna literally means horizontal rope, a reference to the thick twisted rope that a grand champion wears around his waist during the ceremonial ring-entering ritual that opens each tournament day. It is the most prestigious title in all of sumo, held at any given time by only 1 or 2 or occasionally 3 wrestlers in the entire country, and it comes with a quality of reverence in Japanese culture that is difficult to fully convey to someone who did not grow up with it. The yokozuna is not merely the best sumo wrestler. He is a living embodiment of the sport's highest ideals: strength, dignity, composure, the specific quality of bearing that the Japanese word hinkaku describes, meaning a sense of dignity and grace that expresses itself in every movement, every gesture, every public appearance. The yokozuna is also the only permanent rank in sumo. Every other rank can be gained and lost based on tournament performance. The yokozuna cannot be demoted. But if a yokozuna begins to lose, if the performance drops below the standard that the rank demands, he is expected to retire voluntarily. Not demoted, retired. Because to demote a yokozuna would be to diminish the rank itself, and the rank is more important than any individual who holds it. The rank always was before the person, and it'll remain after them. The person borrows it for the duration of their career, and then returns it intact. This is not a rule that is written down and enforced mechanically. It is understood. It is felt. A yokozuna who begins to lose knows what is expected of him without being told, because the culture of sumo has made this expectation so clear and so consistent over so many generations that it requires no announcement. He simply knows. Below the yokozuna, in descending order, come the ozeki, the sekiwaki, the komusubi, and then the various lower divisions. The top 2 divisions, makuchi and juryo, are the professional ranks, the fighters who receive salaries and compete at the major tournaments. Below them are the amateur divisions where the new wrestlers begin, and where the competition to rise is constant and the margin for error is very small. And at the very bottom of the hierarchy, doing the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and the serving and the waiting are the junior wrestlers, who have to get up earliest and who eat last. 4 in the morning. The alarm sounds at 4 in the morning, not 5, not 4:30, 4. On the dot, every morning, without exception or negotiation, because the day is long and the training must be done before the heat of the Tokyo day makes the clay ring uncomfortable, and because the oyakata has decided it begins at 4, and in the sumo stable, what the oyakata decides is simply what happens. The junior wrestlers, the lowest ranked members of the stable, the ones whose tournament records have not yet earned them the right to sleep a little longer, get up first. This is not a guideline. This is the rule. The lower the rank, the earlier the rising. It is a system that has 2 purposes, both of which are understood completely by everyone involved and neither of which requires explanation. It teaches discipline and it teaches humility, which are the 2 qualities that the sumo world considers foundational to everything else. The junior wrestler gets up in the dark. He is probably 17 or 18 years old. He has been in the stable for somewhere between a few months and a year. He came here from a school that recommended him for sumo recruitment, or from a family that saw in his size and his coordination the possibility of a career, or because he saw a tournament on television when he was 12 and decided with the absolute certainty that 12-year-olds sometimes bring to important decisions that this was what he wanted to do with his life. He gets up in the dark and he goes to the kitchen and he starts cooking. He does not eat first. He does not eat at all yet. Nobody eats before training. This is not oversight. This is strategy. The entire sumo diet system is built around a counterintuitive principle: training on a completely empty stomach. He will train for 3 to 4 hours on nothing but water, and when training ends and the enormous meal is finally served, his body will be in exactly the state that maximizes weight gain and muscle building. The metabolic slowdown that results from training fasted means that when the food finally arrives, the body stores it with maximum efficiency. It sounds like the opposite of everything modern nutrition science recommends. It works extraordinarily well. While the junior wrestlers cook, the senior wrestlers sleep. This too is not a coincidence, it is the system. The higher the rank, the later the permitted rising time. A senior wrestler in the upper divisions may not need to be on the training floor for another hour or 2. He has earned this. He earned it with tournament wins and the grinding daily accumulation of a record that moved him up the ranking list 1 position at a time over years. The ability to sleep an extra hour in the morning is not a trivial privilege in the sumo stable. It is a mark of status as clear and readable as the ranking list itself. The kitchen fills with the smell of cooking, the chanko nabe, the great sumo stew, a hot pot of meat and vegetables and tofu in a rich broth that has been the cornerstone of the sumo diet for generations, begins its morning assembly. The junior wrestler who is cooking it has made it hundreds of times. He will make it hundreds more. He knows the recipe the way he knows his own name, though the specific ingredients vary daily depending on what the stable has, what is in season, what the oyakata has requested, and the collective appetite of 15 to 20 large men who are about to spend 3 hours throwing each other across a clay ring and will then need to eat enough to fuel the afternoon's recovery. The history, older than almost everything. Before we step inside the stable and meet the wrestlers who live there, we should spend a moment with a history of what we are about to witness, because the history of sumo is one of the most extraordinary continuity stories in the history of human culture. Sumo appears in the historical record of Japan in the 8th century, in the chronicles and court records of the Nara period, when Japan was a young imperial civilization still finding its institutional shape. The matches recorded in these early documents were held at the imperial court as entertainment for the emperor and the court nobility, and they carried a ceremonial significance that was clear to everyone who witnessed them. The wrestlers were not athletes competing for prize money. They were participants in a sacred ritual that connected the imperial court to the divine powers of the Shinto tradition. The wrestlers who competed at the imperial court in the 8th century would recognize the sport as it is practiced today. The ring is the same shape. The salt is thrown. The stomping is performed. The referee presides. The ceremony precedes the match, and the match is brief and decisive. The tradition that was formed in the imperial courts of the Nara and Heian periods has been transmitted with extraordinary fidelity through more than 13 centuries of Japanese history. Through the medieval period, through the samurai era, through the Edo period of enforced isolation, through the modernization of the Meiji Restoration, through 2 world wars and Reconstruction, an economic miracle, and the full transformation of Japan into a modern industrial democracy, and through all of it, the salt, and through all of it, the ceremony, and through all of it, the 4 a.m. alarm. The sumo stable system, as it exists today, developed primarily in the Edo period, the centuries of the Tokugawa shogunate, from 1603 to 1868, during which Japan was largely closed to the outside world and developed a rich, complex, self-contained culture that produced kabuki theatre and woodblock prints and haiku poetry and the tea ceremony, and, in the entertainment districts of Edo and Osaka and Kyoto, professional sumo as a popular spectacle for the urban merchant class that was growing in wealth and influence. It was in the Edo period that the stable system was formalized. The Heia and the Oyakata and the hierarchical structure and the Chanko Nabe and the top knot and most of the ceremonial elements that define the sport today. It was in this period that sumo became the people's sport of Japan, moving from an imperial court ritual to a public entertainment that drew enormous crowds to outdoor tournaments held at temples and shrines. The temples and shrines are still there. The outdoor tournaments are now held indoors in vast modern arenas, but the ceremony has not changed. How wrestlers are recruited. Most people who end up in sumo stables did not plan to be there. The recruitment process for sumo begins in Japanese middle schools and high schools, where coaches and scouts from sumo stables attend amateur competitions looking for young men who have the physical characteristics that the sport requires, primarily height and build, because sumo at the professional level rewards size. And size in this context means genuine structural advantage rather than merely excess weight. The ideal recruit is a young man who is already large, tall, broad, with a natural heaviness that suggests the body's capacity to develop further in the direction the sport requires. He is probably not the most graceful athlete at his school. He may not be the fastest, but he has a quality of solidity, of physical presence, that the scout recognizes as the raw material for what the stable will make of it. Some recruits come from wrestling backgrounds, amateur Japanese wrestling, or judo, or other grappling sports that have developed the body's ability to move powerfully and read an opponent's weight and balance. These recruits have technical foundations to build on. Others come from no sporting background at all. They are simply large young men who attracted the attention of a scout and were invited to consider a path that most of their peers had not imagined for themselves. The conversation that follows is one of the most significant of a young man's life. He is being invited to give up ordinary life entirely, to move into a stable, to submit himself to a hierarchy so complete that it governs every waking hour, to commit to years of training with no guaranteed outcome except the knowledge that the training will be done, and done thoroughly, and that whatever talent he has will be developed as fully as the tradition knows how to develop it. Some young men say yes immediately, some need time, some decline and live ordinary lives. The ones who say yes get on a train and arrive at the stable with a bag and the beginning of what will become a career unlike almost any other in sport. The recruits who join a stable below the age of 20 and before completing high school are required by Japanese law to continue their education, a relatively recent requirement reflecting modern child protection standards that the sumo world has adapted to while maintaining the training system around it. Those who come to sumo after completing compulsory education enter the full stable life immediately. Either way, within days of arriving, they're up at 4 a.m, learning the language of the stable before they have learned anything else about the sport itself. The training begins. By 5 a.m, the training floor is alive. The dojo, the sumo ring, sits at the center of the training space. A circle of clay approximately 4.5 meters in diameter, raised slightly above the surrounding floor, its boundary marked by a ring of twisted rice straw bales set into the clay. It is resurfaced regularly. The clay is maintained with a careful attention that a sports organization gives its most sacred piece of equipment. Because in sumo, the dojo is not merely a playing surface, it is sacred ground. It is purified with salt before each training session. It is treated with the reverence that the wrestling done on it requires. The training is called keiko, and it is conducted according to a system that has been essentially unchanged for centuries. The junior wrestlers go first, practicing against each other, learning the fundamental techniques of the sport, the pushes, the throws, the grips, the footwork, under the watchful eye of the oyakata and the senior wrestlers who observe from the edge of the ring. The observation is not passive. The senior wrestlers and the oyakata call out corrections, offer instruction, demonstrate technique. The junior wrestler who makes a mistake hears about it immediately and in clear terms, because the sumo training environment is not one that softens criticism in the interest of preserving feelings. Feelings are not the priority. Technique is the priority. Character is the priority. Getting better is the priority. The techniques of sumo are more numerous and more varied than most outsiders realize. There are 82 officially recognized winning techniques in sumo: throws, trips, pushes, lifts, twists, each with its own name and its own specific execution. A wrestler who masters a wide repertoire of these techniques is considerably more dangerous than one who relies on size and strength alone. and the training sessions are partly dedicated to expanding and refining each wrestler's technical range. The physical demands of the training are not gentle. 3 to 4 hours of throwing and being thrown, of practicing from the starting position over and over, of working against partners who are trying with full commitment to defeat you, of the specific kind of controlled violence that sumo training requires. This is not exercise in the modern sense of scheduled, carefully calibrated fitness activity. This is the training of a warrior tradition, conducted in a spirit of total commitment and with the understanding that pain is information and discomfort is the curriculum. The senior wrestlers enter the ring later in the morning, training against each other with the accumulated technique and power of careers that have spanned years or decades. Watching a senior sumo wrestler in training is a different experience from watching a junior one. The junior wrestler is learning the language. The senior wrestler is speaking it fluently, and the fluency shows in every movement, the speed of the initial charge, the precision of the grip, the explosive power of the throw, the specific quality of controlled violence that distinguishes expertise from effort. The oyakata watches all of it. He notes who is improving and who is stagnating. He notes who is working through fatigue and who is protecting themselves. He notes the technical habits that need correction and the psychological tendencies that need adjustment. He will discuss some of these observations directly with the wrestlers in the moment. Others he will hold and address in the evening when the day is done and the training can be reviewed with the perspective of completion. The training ends, the salt is scattered, the dohyo is raked. Now finally it is time to eat. The mind of the sumo wrestler. What the training builds is not only a body, it builds a mind, a specific, disciplined, tradition-shaped psychological orientation that the sumo world calls hinkaku, and that might be translated imperfectly as dignity or grace or the quality of being fully present in one's role without ego or performance. Hinkaku is the quality that distinguishes a great sumo wrestler from merely a large and powerful one. It is visible in the way a wrestler enters the ring, the unhurried, deliberate quality of the movement, the absence of showmanship or theatrics, the specific composure of someone who has made peace with both victory and defeat as outcomes of the same sacred contest. It is visible in the way a wrestler responds to a loss, with the same boo, the same brief acknowledgement, the same return to the starting position, as a win. In sumo, the winner does not celebrate. The loser does not despair. Both are expressions of the same reality, which is that the contest was sacred, and both participants gave it their full commitment, and the outcome is simply what the contest produced. This is not natural human behaviour. Natural human behaviour celebrates wins and mourns losses with enthusiasm and feeling, because wins and losses matter to the self, and the self is invested in the outcome. Sumo training asks the wrestlers to inhabit a different relationship with winning and losing, one in which the contest itself is the sacred thing, and the outcome is important, but not more important than the quality of the participation. Years of training build this, not by suppressing the natural emotional responses, but by channeling them into the training itself, into the daily commitment to improving, into the relationship with the tradition that frames both winning and losing as temporary, and the tradition as permanent. A wrestler who wins a tournament is celebrated, genuinely, warmly, with the deep satisfaction of a community that understands what the achievement cost. But by the next training session, he is back on the clay floor at 5 in the morning, and the championship is behind him. And what is in front of him is the next training, and the next, and the next, because the tradition is continuous, and it makes no provision for resting on achievement. A wrestler who loses a tournament is not consoled. He is simply expected to train. The loss is information. The training is the response. This orientation, the constant returning to the work regardless of the outcome, is one of the things that makes watching sumo, when one understands it properly, something more than watching two large men try to push each other around. It is watching the product of a tradition that has spent 1300 years thinking about how to build human beings who can hold great physical power with great psychological discipline, and then express both in 6 seconds of absolute commitment. The best sumo wrestlers are not the largest, they are the ones who have most completely internalized this orientation, who are most fully present in the 6 seconds, who bring everything to the contest without holding back, and without needing the outcome to validate the bringing. This is what Hinkaku looks like in practice. It is, in its own specific and ancient way, remarkable. The women question. There is one aspect of sumo tradition that deserves its own moment, because it surprises most people, and because it connects the ancient and the contemporary in a way that is genuinely complicated. Women are not permitted on the dohyo, not in competition, not in ceremony, not ever. The rule is absolute, and it is ancient, and it is rooted in the Shinto purification principles that underlie the entire structure of the sport. The dohyo is sacred ground that must be maintained in a state of ritual purity, and in the traditional Shinto understanding, women during menstruation are considered ritually impure in a way that would contaminate the sacred space. The rule derives from this understanding, applied consistently across the centuries. In the modern context, this rule is controversial. There have been incidents: a female mayor of a Japanese city who was not permitted to enter the ring to present an award. A female paramedic who rushed into the ring to provide emergency medical assistance to a wrestler who had collapsed, and was asked over the public address system to leave the sacred space, even as she was performing CPR. These incidents generated significant public debate about whether a rule rooted in ancient Shinto cosmology should be maintained in a society that has formally committed to gender equality. The Japan Sumo Association has, to date, maintained the rule. The debate continues. It is one of the places where the 1300-year-old tradition meets the 21st century in a way that is genuinely unresolved, and that the tradition has not yet found a way to answer that satisfies everyone. This is not the only way in which sumo is navigating the intersection of ancient practice and contemporary expectation. The sport has seen scandals, match-fixing, inappropriate conduct that have required the association to respond with modern governance mechanisms while maintaining the traditional culture. Foreign wrestlers who now compete at the highest levels and have occasionally held the yokozuna rank bring different cultural backgrounds and different assumptions into a world built on Japanese cultural specificity. The stable system, the hierarchy, the mandatory communal living, these work differently for a young man from Mongolia or Bulgaria than for one from a Japanese town where the sumo culture is deeply embedded. The tradition absorbs these tensions the way it has absorbed everything else, slowly, incompletely, with the specific stubbornness of something that has survived this long by being very clear about what it is and very reluctant to become something different. The foreign wrestlers. The presence of foreign wrestlers in professional sumo is one of the most interesting developments of the last several decades. The sport has always, in principle, been open to anyone. But historically, the cultural barriers to entry, the language, the lifestyle, the hierarchical structure, the communal living, the complete immersion in a tradition that required not merely athletic ability, but cultural assimilation, meant that foreign participation was very rare. Then in the 1980s and 90s, a small number of wrestlers from Hawaii began competing at the highest levels. They brought different body types, different training backgrounds, different cultural assumptions, and they won. The Hawaiian wrestlers reached the senior professional ranks, and one, known by his ring name of Akebono, became the first foreign-born wrestler to achieve the rank of Yokozuna. This opened a door. In the years that followed, wrestlers from Mongolia, Russia, Bulgaria, Georgia, Brazil, and other countries joined the professional sumo ranks. Mongolian wrestlers in particular have dominated the sport at its highest level for the last 2 decades, with multiple Mongolian Yokozuna holding the Grand Championship rank, and a generation of Mongolian wrestlers winning the majority of major tournaments. This had been celebrated as proof of the sport's universality, that the techniques and the discipline and the specific physical demands of sumo translate across cultures, that what the stable system builds in a person can be built in a person from anywhere. It has also been observed with a certain cultural anxiety that the sumo world has not entirely suppressed, that the most ancient and quintessentially Japanese sport in existence is now frequently won by people from Mongolia. The tradition absorbs this too. The salt is still thrown, the ceremony is still performed. The chanko nabe is still cooked at 4 a.m. The foreign yokozuna performs his ring-entering ceremony at the Meiji Shrine in Tokyo with the same reverence and the same rope around his waist as every Japanese yokozuna before him. Because in sumo, the tradition is the constant. And the tradition, it turns out, does not care very much where you're from. It cares how you train. The meal, the center of everything. The chanko nabe has been cooking for hours. The smell of it fills the stable, a rich, complex smell of meat and vegetables and broth, and the specific warmth of a dish that has been given time to develop, that is not rushed, that has been made with the care that feeding 15 to 20 large athletes requires. It is a good smell. It is, by the time training ends and the appetite of 3 to 4 hours of fasted exercise has built to its full expression, one of the best smells in the world. The wrestlers file in from the training floor. They wash, they change, they sit. The order in which they sit and the order in which they are served is determined entirely by rank. The oyakata and any guests eat first, then the senior wrestlers in order of their ranking, then the middle-ranked wrestlers, and finally, after everyone above them has had their fill, the junior wrestlers eat whatever remains. This is not presented as a hardship. It is presented as a privilege in reverse. The privilege of seniority expressed through the right to eat first, the acknowledgement of the hierarchy through the willingness to eat last. The junior wrestler who has been cooking since 4 in the morning and training since 5 will sit down to eat at perhaps 11 or 12, watching the senior wrestlers take the best portions of the stew he has been tending for hours, and he will do this without resentment because the culture of the stable has made it clear that this is simply the order of things, and that the order of things is not arbitrary but earned, and that he himself will one day sit at the front of the room if he wins enough matches. He knows this, he accepts it, he waits. The chanko nabe itself is worth understanding in some detail because it is more interesting than the name sumo stew might suggest. It is a hot pot, a large pot of seasoned broth into which various ingredients are added and cooked together. The broth can be soy-based, miso-based, salt-based, or various other foundations depending on the season and the stable's preference. Into it go vegetables, cabbage, burdock root, daikon radish, mushrooms, leeks, green onions, and protein in large quantities. Chicken is the most traditional. Fish, tofu, pork, beef on special occasions, eggs. Whatever the stable has and whatever the cook has decided today's version will be. There is a reason chicken is particularly common in chanko nabe, and it is a reason that the sumo world will tell you with entirely straight faces. Chickens stand on 2 legs. In sumo, to have a hand or a knee touch the ground is to lose. A chicken never touches the ground with anything other than its feet. It therefore carries in the sumo understanding of things a symbolic quality of victory that makes it an appropriate protein for athletes who are professionally invested in not touching the ground. The wrestlers eat large quantities of this stew, very large quantities. Then they eat rice, then possibly more stew, possibly more rice. The typical sumo wrestler consumes somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 calories in this single meal, which is the caloric equivalent of an average person's food intake for 2 to 4 entire days, consumed in a single sitting after a 4-hour training session conducted on an empty stomach. The science of why this works is genuinely fascinating. The fasted training slows the metabolism, preparing the body to store what it receives very efficiently. The large meal then arrives at exactly the moment of maximum metabolic receptiveness. The body, having been worked intensively for hours without fuel, receives the enormous caloric load and uses it with extraordinary efficiency, building muscle, adding weight, preparing for the next training session. It is a system that was arrived at not through modern nutritional science, but through centuries of empirical observation. This is what makes sumo wrestlers, and so this is what sumo wrestlers do. The meal takes a while. There is no rushing. Eating is not a functional interruption to the training day. It is part of the training day. The community of the stable is felt most fully around the meal. Wrestlers talk. They discuss the morning's training. They observe the oyakata's mood. They navigate the social landscape of the stable with the careful attention of people who live in very close quarters with the same group of individuals every day, and for whom the management of relationships is as much a survival skill as any technique practiced on the dohyo. The mandatory nap. After the meal, the wrestlers sleep. Not some of them. All of them. The afternoon nap is not optional, not informal, not a casual choice made by individuals based on personal preference. It is prescribed. It is part of the training system. Everyone sleeps. The science behind the mandatory nap is the same science that governs the fasted training and the enormous meal. After consuming 10,000 calories in a single sitting, the body needs to dedicate significant resources to processing and storing that intake. Sleep facilitates this process. The metabolism, already slowed by the morning's fasted training, takes the caloric load of the meal and stores it with maximum efficiency during the afternoon sleep. The wrestlers wake up having gained a measurable fraction of the weight that the sumo career requires them to accumulate. For the junior wrestlers, the nap follows after a series of obligations that the senior wrestlers do not share. The dishes must be washed, the training floor must be swept, the laundry must be done, the stable must be cleaned. These are junior wrestler duties performed without complaint because they are understood as part of the training, not of the body, but of the character, the patience, the willingness to do what is necessary regardless of personal preference. Only after the chores are done may the junior wrestler sleep. The senior wrestler has been sleeping since the meal ended. This is the system. This is the hierarchy made daily and concrete and impossible to miss. The afternoon. When the wrestlers wake from their nap, the afternoon stretches before them with a quality of relative freedom that the morning entirely lacks. Some spend it in additional technical study, watching recordings of tournament matches, analysing the techniques of rivals, reviewing their own performance in recent bouts. Some spend it on the administrative business of being a professional athlete, correspondence with sponsors, appearances, the modest celebrity management that the higher-ranked wrestlers require. Some simply rest further, because the body at this level of physical development requires very significant recovery time, and the afternoon is partly the recovery from the morning. The junior wrestlers clean, then they begin preparing the evening meal, then they clean again. The evening meal is smaller than the lunch, a reflection of the understanding that large quantities of food consumed late in the day and followed by sleep produce weight gain more efficiently than large quantities consumed earlier. The sumo stable is, in its own ancient and entirely practical way, a precision weight management operation. Everything serves the purpose of building the body that the sport requires. The 4 a.m. start, the fasted training, the enormous midday meal, the mandatory nap, the smaller evening meal, the early bedtime. Each element connects to the others in a system that has been refined over generations into something that is, by its own specific metrics, extraordinarily effective. The costume, the hair, the name. Outside the stable, a sumo wrestler is as immediately recognizable as any person on earth. He wears a kimono, not occasionally, not for formal events, always whenever he is in public. The kimono is not optional for a professional sumo wrestler. It is required dress in public spaces, a rule enforced by the Japan Sumo Association as part of the understanding that a sumo wrestler in public is always representing the sport, and the sport requires a certain presentation. On his head, he wears the top knot. The shonmeiji, a hairstyle that dates from the samurai era of feudal Japan, the Edo period of the 1600s and 1700s, is maintained by a specialist hairdresser who attends the stable and who constructs the elaborate oiled top knot with the care and precision of someone who understands that this hairstyle is not merely cosmetic, it is cultural, it is historical, it is the physical marker of membership in a tradition that stretches back centuries. The hair grows with the career. When a wrestler first joins a stable, his hair is too short for the top knot, and he wears it in the simpler style of a junior athlete. As his career develops and his hair grows, the style becomes more elaborate. By the time a wrestler reaches the senior professional ranks, the top knot is a full oicho mage, the ginkgo leaf knot, named for the shape it makes above the head. The most elaborate and most recognizable version of the style, the one that appears in every image of professional sumo that has ever been taken. The hair and the top knot are a symbol of the wrestler's strength, the sumo world says. They grow together, and when the career ends, they are cut together in a ceremony that is one of the most emotionally significant moments in the entire sumo calendar. The wrestlers also receive new names when they begin their professional careers. Sumo names are not ordinary names. They're chosen from a vocabulary of words and concepts associated with strength, power, and the natural world. Mountains are popular. Many names end in yama, meaning mountain. Rivers appear, gawa, the sea, umi. Power, wind, great sky, golden eagle. The names have a quality of grandeur that everyday Japanese names typically do not, because the sumo name is not a personal name. It is a professional identity, a character, a persona that the wrestler embodies for the duration of his career. And crucially, the name does not belong to the wrestler. It belongs to the stable. When a wrestler retires, the name stays. It may be given to a future wrestler from the same stable in a different generation. Different person, same name. The tradition continues. The individual passes through it, and the tradition absorbs them and continues without them, as it has always done, and as it will continue to do. The ceremonies. Sumo is a Shinto ritual. Before we watch the match itself, we need to understand something fundamental about sumo that the Western sports broadcast almost never explains adequately. Sumo is not a sport that has religious elements. Sumo is a Shinto ritual that has athletic elements. The distinction matters completely. Shinto is the indigenous spiritual tradition of Japan, an ancient animist understanding of the world in which everything contains a spirit, in which certain places are sacred, in which ritual purification is necessary before entering sacred spaces and performing sacred activities, and in which the boundary between the human world and the divine world is navigated through specific ceremonies, conducted at specific times, in specific ways. Sumo has existed within this framework since it first appears in the historical record in the 8th century, when matches were held as offerings to the gods at Shinto shrines. The wrestlers were not athletes competing for a prize. They were participants in a divine ceremony, offering their strength and skill to the gods as a form of prayer and tribute. This origin is present in every element of modern professional sumo, whether the crowd watching a television broadcast recognizes it or not. The dohyo, the ring, is a sacred space. It is purified with salt before each training session and before each tournament day. The rice straw bales that form its boundary are the same material used to mark the boundaries of sacred Shinto spaces. The canopy that hangs over the ring in official tournaments is modelled precisely on the roof of a Shinto shrine, signalling to everyone present that the space below it is holy ground. The salt thrown by wrestlers before a match is a purification ritual. It cleanses the ring of negative energies before the contest. The practice is identical in purpose and spirit to the salt purification rituals conducted at Shinto shrines. The stamping of the feet that the wrestlers perform before the match begins, those dramatic, high-stepping stamps that look like intimidation and partly are, have a ceremonial purpose. They're driving evil spirits out of the ground. The ring must be clear of malign influences before the sacred contest can begin. The referee's costume, the elaborate robes, the hat, the fan, is modelled directly on the clothing of a Shinto priest. He is not merely officiating a sporting contest, he is presiding over a ceremony. And when a new yokozuna is elevated to the Grand Championship rank, his first ring entering ceremony, the elaborate ritual in which the Grand Champion, accompanied by 2 sword-carrying wrestlers from his stable, performs his ceremonial entrance at the opening of a tournament, does not take place in a sumo venue. It takes place at the Meiji Shrine in Tokyo, one of the most important Shinto sites in Japan, in a ceremony that is as religious as any performed in any temple or shrine in the country. The yokozuna is not merely Japan's best sumo wrestler. He is, in the full Shinto understanding, a figure of sacred significance. His bearing, his composure, his grace, the hinkaku, are not merely the aesthetics of a sporting champion. They are the qualities required of someone who stands at the intersection of the human and the divine, who performs a ritual function that has been performed for more than 1,000 years, and that connects the present to an ancient and continuing sacred tradition. The match, 6 seconds after all of this, the 4 a.m. rising, the hours of empty stomach training, the enormous meal, the mandatory nap, the ceremonies, the salt, the stamping, the elaborate preparations that have been going on since before dawn. The match begins, and it is over, typically in under 10 seconds, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, occasionally less. The fastest matches in professional sumo history have lasted less than 1 second. A single explosive movement in which one wrestler drives the other out of the ring before the other has had time to register that the charge has begun. The average sumo match lasts approximately 6 seconds. 6 seconds. To understand why this is not anticlimactic, but is instead exactly right, one needs to understand what those 6 seconds actually are. The match does not begin when the 2 wrestlers step into the ring. It begins with the mizu-iri, the water ritual, in which the wrestlers rinse their mouths at the edge of the ring. It continues with the shiko, the ceremonial leg raises, those high-stepping stamps that drive out the evil spirits. It continues with the salt throwing, handfuls of white salt scattered across the ring in arcing clouds, purifying the space. A gesture that in major tournaments involves kilograms of salt scattered ceremonially over the course of a tournament day. It continues with the chirachozu, the clapping and extending of the hands, palms up, showing that the wrestlers carry no weapons into this sacred contest. Then the 2 wrestlers approach the starting line and crouch into the tachi-ai position. The starting crouch, hands near the ground, eyes locked on each other, waiting. And here is where sumo becomes genuinely, fascinatingly psychological. The match cannot begin until both wrestlers have placed both hands on the ground simultaneously. This is the rule. Both hands, both wrestlers at the same moment. And the wrestlers know this, so they approach the starting line and they lower their hands and they raise them again, and they lower them and raise them again, and they stare at each other with the focused, calculating attention of 2 people who are simultaneously trying to achieve the starting position and trying to read the moment when the opponent will also achieve it so that they can begin their charge at exactly the right instant. This ritual, the false starts, the psychological probing, the attempt to find the perfect moment, can take 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. In major tournaments, wrestlers are allowed a fixed amount of time, after which the referee calls them to the line and requires them to begin. But the time before the charge begins is itself a contest, a battle of nerves and reading, and the attempt to gain fractional advantages before the physical contest has technically started. And then both hands go down, and the world explodes. The tachi-ai, the initial charge, is the single most explosive moment in sumo and possibly in any sport. Two men weighing anywhere from 150 to 250 kilograms, having both been waiting and building and calculating and tensing for the exact right moment, launch themselves at each other from a distance of perhaps 70 centimeters with every kilogram of their body weight and every watt of power they can generate from legs and hips and shoulders and will. The collision sounds like nothing else. It is not a gentle sound. It is the sound of significant mass moving very fast and meeting significant mass moving very fast in the opposite direction at a point in space that happens to be a clay ring surrounded by spectators who have been waiting and building and calculating alongside the wrestlers. What happens after the collision depends on the technique, the 82 possible winning moves, the grips and throws and trips and pushes that the training has been building toward for years. A wrestler who gets inside his opponent's guard at the tachi-ai has a significant advantage. A wrestler who achieves a belt grip immediately after the charge controls the direction of the contest. A wrestler with superior lower body strength can drive an opponent backwards toward the straw boundary with the steady, irresistible force of a vehicle, and then one of them is out of the ring. Or one of them has touched the ground with something other than the soles of his feet. Or one of them has touched the straw boundary with any part of his body, and it is over. 6 seconds. The referee in his Shinto priest's robes points his fan to indicate the winner. The winner rises and returns to his starting position with the composure that the tradition requires. The loser rises and also returns to his position. They bow to each other. They bow to the referee. They exit the ring. The years of training, the 4 a.m. alarms, the empty stomachs and the enormous meals, and the mandatory naps and the chores, and the waiting and the eating lust, and the salt and the stamping, and the ceremony and the hierarchy, all of it has just produced 6 seconds of the most concentrated athletic achievement in sport. And tomorrow, it begins again. The tournament professional sumo holds 6 major tournaments per year, each lasting 15 days, held alternately in Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, and Fukuoka. These are the Honbasho, the official tournaments that determine rankings, careers, legacies. Each day of a tournament, each professional wrestler fights one match against a different opponent. 15 days of competition, 15 matches. The wrestler with the best record at the end of the 15 days wins the tournament. A wrestler who goes 8 wins and 7 losses has a winning record and maintains or improves his ranking. A wrestler who goes 7 wins and 8 losses has a losing record and faces demotion. The pressure is constant and it compounds daily. A wrestler who loses his first 3 matches faces the mathematics of needing to win 9 of his remaining 12 to achieve a winning record. A wrestler who wins his first 7 in a row faces the specific pressure of a perfect record and all the expectation and scrutiny that brings. For the lower-ranked wrestlers, the tournament is the primary mechanism of advancement. You cannot talk your way up the rankings or be promoted through connections or political favour. You win matches, or you do not. The record is public and definitive and updated daily and posted on the ranking list for everyone to read. For the Yokozuna, the tournament carries a different kind of pressure. The Grand Champion is expected not merely to win, but to win in a specific way, with power, with technique, with the bearing and composure that the rank demands. A Yokozuna who wins ugly, who survives by luck or an opponent's mistake, who appears to struggle against lower-ranked opponents. This is noticed. The Yokozuna Deliberation Council, a body of outside observers who assess the performance and conduct of Grand Champions, notices. The Sumo world notices. And if the losing continues, the conversation begins. Not a public conversation, not an announcement. A quiet understanding spreading through the sumo community that the Grand Champion's time may be approaching its end. The Grand Champion who understands this, and they all understand this, will typically act before the conversation becomes too loud. He will announce his retirement. He will set the date. He will begin the preparations for the ceremony. The retirement, the most extraordinary ceremony, the Danpatsushiki, the retirement ceremony, is one of the most emotionally significant events in Japanese sport, and it is almost completely unknown outside Japan. It takes place in public, in a sumo venue, in front of a crowd. The retiring wrestler sits on a low stool in the centre of the dohyo, the sacred ring he has competed on throughout his career, wearing full ceremonial sumo dress, his elaborate top knot immaculate for the last time. Then a line forms. Everyone who has been significant in the wrestler's career, coaches, stablemates, rivals who became friends, friends who were always friends, mentors and teachers, and former training partners, and the various figures of the sumo world who have intersected with this career. Over the years it has lasted. Each of them takes a pair of ceremonial scissors, and each of them makes one small cut. The cuts begin around the edges of the top knot, small symbolic cuts one after another, from the many hands of the many people whose lives have intersected with the life of this wrestler. Slowly, through the accumulation of all these small cuts, the elaborate top knot is reduced to its foundation. And then the stable master, the oyakata, the man who has been more than a coach, who has been the father of the stable family that this wrestler has lived within throughout his career, takes the scissors and makes the final cut. The top knot is removed. The stable master holds it up. The wrestler, his hair now loose and short for the first time since the beginning of his professional life, listens to testimonials. He bows in all four directions, to the north, south, east and west, acknowledging everything and everyone. And then he walks away from the ring for the last time. The name he has carried, the mountain or the river or the sea or the great sky, stays behind. It belongs to the stable. And after all of this, after the ceremony and the testimonials and the bowing and the retirement that ends one of the most demanding careers in sport, the former Yokozuna goes to work as a ticket taker at the next tournament, as an expression of humility. Because in sumo, no matter how high you have risen, the tradition is larger than you are. It was here before you. It will be here after you. And the appropriate response to that reality at the end of a career is not entitlement, but gratitude. Not the demand for special treatment, but the willingness to do whatever the tradition requires. Even the grandest champion, at the end of the greatest career, takes the tickets. And nobody thinks this is strange. The wrestlers in public. In the streets of Ryogoku, the sumo wrestlers are simply part of the neighborhood. They walk to the convenience store in their kimonos, their top knots immaculate, their size making the ordinary aisles of the store feel somewhat compressed. They eat at the chankonabe restaurants that cluster in this district, many of them run by retired wrestlers who have converted their knowledge of the sumo diet into a restaurant business that serves a somewhat more modest version of the famous stew to curious tourists and regular local customers. They navigate the modern city with the dignity that the tradition requires. They do not run in public. They do not make noise in public. They are self-effacing, modest, soft-spoken in public encounters, because the Japan Sumo Association's rules about public conduct are clear, and the wrestlers understand that in public they are always representing something larger than themselves. The contrast of them in the modern city is genuinely striking and genuinely unremarked upon by the local residents who see it every day. A man who weighs 180 kilograms in an Edo period samurai hairstyle and a traditional kimono, buying a bottle of green tea and a rice ball at a convenience store in the shadow of a Tokyo apartment tower. This is not remarkable in Ryogoku. This is Tuesday. The modern Tokyo that surrounds the sumo world is one of the most technologically advanced environments on Earth. The sumo world within it is essentially unchanged from the 18th century. The two coexist, not in tension, but in the specific harmony of a culture that has always been comfortable holding its ancient and its modern simultaneously, seeing no contradiction between the bullet train and the Shinto shrine, the robot restaurant and the ritual ring. The numbers, the statistics of sumo are worth a moment because they tell the story of the sport with a clarity that description sometimes cannot. There are approximately 680 professional sumo wrestlers in Japan at any given time. Of these, the public typically follows the top 42 in the Makuuchi division. Below them, in the Juryo division, are 28 more, and below them, in the 4 lower divisions, are the several hundred wrestlers who are grinding and competing and winning and losing with the specific daily commitment of people who believe that the ranking list still has places to give them if they want them enough. 6 tournaments per year, 15 days each, 680 wrestlers, all competing, all climbing or falling, all eating their chanko nabe and training in their stables and cooking in their kitchens at 4 in the morning and waiting for their turn to eat for 6 seconds in the ring. The Junior Wrestlers' Day, hour by hour. To understand the sumo stable properly, it helps to follow one day completely. Not the abstract description of what happens, but the specific, hour by hour, sensation by sensation reality of what it is to be the most junior person in the room. He is 17. He arrived at the stable 8 months ago from a small city in Aichi Prefecture, recommended by his middle school wrestling coach who had watched him compete and called someone he knew in the sumo world and made the call that changed everything. He had never been to Tokyo before he arrived at the stable. He had never been away from home for more than a week. He has a sumo name now, assigned to him by the stable master in a brief, formal meeting shortly after his arrival, derived from a word that suggests strength and connection to the earth. He uses this name in the stable. He will use it in competition. His family still calls him by his given name when he calls them on his phone on Sunday evenings, which is the one time per week when the training schedule creates a natural break of sufficient length for personal calls. He wakes at 4. The training floor is already being swept when he arrives. He is among the first up, but not the first. He changes into his mawashi, the thick cotton belt that is the sumo wrestler's competition garb and training attire both, and begins the preparations for the morning. The first task is cleaning the dohyo. The clay ring is swept, checked for irregularities, prepared for the morning's training. The clay must be even. The straw boundary bales must be intact. The surface must be consistent. This is the junior wrestler's responsibility every morning, and he performs it with the focused attention of someone who has learned, through correction and repetition, exactly what the surface needs to be and what the consequences are of it not being right. Then the cooking. The chanko nabe pot is enormous, genuinely enormous, sized for the appetite of an entire stable of wrestlers, and the contents assembled each morning from the ingredients that the stable's kitchen stocks and the recipe that today's cook has decided on. The broth first, then the vegetables, cut and prepared, then the protein. The whole thing simmering over the gas flame while the training begins on the floor 20 feet away. He cooks and he trains. Not simultaneously. He takes his turn on the training floor with everyone else, comes back to check the pot, returns to training, circles back. The kitchen and the dohyo are both his responsibility this morning, and he manages both with the multitasking attention of someone who has learned through the first months that being a junior wrestler in a sumo stable requires a very particular kind of presence, always aware, always ready, always anticipating the next thing that needs doing before being asked. On the training floor, the morning session is the most physically demanding thing he does every day, and he does it every day, and it is always the most physically demanding thing he does. This never changes. The body adapts to the training load, and the training load increases. The body adapts again. This is sumo's approach to development. Constant escalation of demand, graduated across years, producing a body that is progressively more capable until it reaches the limits of what the individual can achieve. He is thrown regularly. This is not a figure of speech. He is physically thrown by men larger and more experienced than him across the clay surface of the training dohyo several times per session as a direct and unavoidable component of learning. The throwing is educational. Each throw teaches something, what the attacker did to achieve it, what he, the defender, failed to do to prevent it, where the weight shifted, how the grip was established. He lands, gets up, processes, continues. The senior wrestlers watch. Occasionally, one will stop a drill and demonstrate something. A correction of his stance, an alternative response to a particular attack, a detail of technique that he has been getting fractionally wrong in a way that has compounded over weeks into a significant inefficiency. He listens completely. He tries the correction immediately. He will try it again tomorrow morning and the morning after, and every morning until the correction is absorbed into the body's automatic response, below the level of conscious thought. By the time training ends at 8 or 9 in the morning, he has been awake for 4 or 5 hours, has been actively working for most of them, and has not eaten anything. The hunger is significant. He serves the meal to the senior wrestlers. He carries the bowls. He pours the tea. He ensures that the senior wrestlers have what they need before returning to the kitchen to check whether anything else is required. When the senior wrestlers are satisfied and the meal has reached its natural conclusion, he sits down and eats, with the appetite of someone who has been awake since 4, has trained for 3 hours, and has spent the last hour watching other people eat. It is the best meal of the day. It is almost always the best meal of the day. After the meal and the dishes and the cleaning and the nap, the mandatory, prescriptive, metabolically strategic nap, the afternoon opens with a small amount of relative freedom. He can study. He can call his family on the stable's phone. He can rest further. He can work on technique with a training partner who also has energy for an afternoon session. He is not required to do any of these things. He is required to be available, to be present, to be ready for whatever the stable needs. If the oyakata wants to discuss his training, he is available. If a senior wrestler needs something, he provides it. If there is additional cleaning or maintenance to be done, he does it without being asked, because the culture of the stable has taught him to see what needs doing and do it before anyone has to ask. By 9 in the evening, the stable has gone quiet. The evening meal has been eaten, the dishes washed, the preparations made for tomorrow's morning. He is in his room, a small shared room that he occupies with 1 or 2 other junior wrestlers, which is private only in the sense of having walls, and communal in every other sense. He lies down. He is asleep before 10 o'clock. In 6 hours the alarm will sound again. He will get up. He will start the pot. He will train on an empty stomach for 3 hours. He will serve the meal. He will eat what remains. He will nap. He will do his chores. He will sleep. And tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. For years, until the tournament record says he has earned the right to eat a little earlier, and then a little earlier still, until one day he is one of the men being served, and some new junior wrestler is in the kitchen at 4 in the morning, cooking the chanko nabe, waiting for his turn. The champions, the names that last. Every era of sumo produces a handful of wrestlers who transcend the sport's normal boundaries and become something larger, cultural figures, national symbols, the names that people who have never watched a tournament know, the faces on the commemorative merchandise, and the subjects of the documentaries. Understanding what makes a sumo wrestler legendary requires understanding what the sport values, which is not primarily winning, though winning is necessary, but the quality and the manner of the winning. The sumo wrestler who becomes a legend is the one who wins with such completeness and such grace that the winning itself becomes a demonstration of everything the tradition holds dear. Taiho, whose ring name means Great Bird in the Rock tradition, dominated sumo in the 1960s with a combination of size, technique, and the specific psychological authority that made opponents feel, before the match had begun, that the outcome was already determined. He won 45 major tournaments. The phrase Kyojin, Taiho, Tamagoyaki, Giants Baseball, Taiho, and Rolled Egg Omelette became a saying that summarized the 3 things that everyone in Japan loved without reservation. He was not merely a champion, He was a beloved cultural fixture, the sumo wrestler as national comfort. Hakuho, the Mongolian wrestler who dominated sumo from the mid-2000s through to his retirement, won 45 tournament championships, equaling and then surpassing Taiho's record. He was the longest reigning yokozuna in the sport's history. His technique was considered by many observers to be the most complete ever seen at the highest level. A wrestler who had mastered every aspect of the sport so thoroughly that watching him compete felt like watching the tradition demonstrate itself through a human body. He was also Mongolian, which meant that his dominance coincided with the period of intense public reflection on what it means for a sport defined by Japanese cultural identity to be dominated by a foreign-born wrestler. Hakuho navigated this with the awareness of someone who understood the complexity of his position and chose to embrace the tradition fully, performing the ceremonies with complete commitment, conducting himself with the bearing that the yokozuna rank requires, learning the cultural expectations that his rank imposed on him, and meeting them with what appeared to be genuine conviction. Whether this was purely strategic or genuinely felt is a question that only Hakuho can answer. What the results showed was a wrestler who embodied hinkaku, the quality of dignity and grace, as fully as any Japanese-born yokozuna before him. The question of what sumo is at its deepest level is partly answered by the story of Hakuho. It is a Japanese tradition. It is also a human tradition. The clay ring and the salt and the ceremony are Japanese. The will to compete and the capacity for discipline and the willingness to dedicate a life to becoming excellent at something difficult. These are not Japanese. These are human. The tradition knew this somewhere in its 1300-year understanding of itself. It just needed someone from Mongolia to make it explicit. The physical reality. Let us be very clear about what the bodies of professional sumo wrestlers actually are, because the popular image is only partially correct. The popular image shows very large men who are very fat. This is not wrong. The body fat percentage of a professional sumo wrestler is high by any athletic standard. In some cases, extraordinarily high. The deliberate weight accumulation that the sumo system produces includes a significant fat component. But underneath the fat is something that a casual observer cannot see and that makes the athletic achievement of sumo possible. An extraordinary musculature developed through years of the specific training that sumo requires, that gives the wrestlers' movements their explosive power and their stability, and their capacity for the precise, controlled application of enormous force. A professional sumo wrestler who can be pushed over easily simply does not exist at the professional level. The stability of the sumo stance, the feet wide, the knees bent, the hips low, the center of gravity dropped, combined with the muscle that years of training have built in the legs and hips and core, means that moving a professional sumo wrestler from a position he has chosen to occupy requires a force that is genuinely astonishing. The force generated in the Tachi-ai collision, 250 kilograms of human being moving at sprinting speed into another 250 kilograms of human being, is the kind of force that engineering calculations tend to express in terms of the equivalent vehicle speed at impact. The wrestlers absorb this force every session, every day, for years, and then they get up and cook the chanko nabe. This is the reality of the sumo body that the tournament broadcasts do not have time to explain. The extraordinary physical resilience that develops alongside the extraordinary weight, the way the body adapts to demands that would be catastrophic for an untrained person and become, for the trained wrestler, simply the daily working conditions. The flexibility is also remarkable and also hidden by the exterior. Senior sumo wrestlers performing the shiko stamping exercises, those high dramatic leg raises that the ceremony requires before each match, lift their legs to heights that are surprising from a body of that mass because the hip flexibility required is genuinely significant and has been specifically trained over years of daily practice. The sumo body is not simply a fat body. It is a specific kind of body, built for a specific purpose, through a specific system, over a specific period of time. Understanding this changes how you watch the sport. The men in the ring are not, despite their size, making extraordinary athletic movements. They're, because of their size and because of everything the stable system has built around and within that size, capable of things that no other body type on earth can do in quite the same way. The 6 seconds that the match lasts are 6 seconds of the most concentrated physical and psychological output that the human body is capable of generating, which is why the preparation requires a lifetime, and why the mandatory nap is not optional. The audience. The people who fill the sumo arena on a tournament day are worth a moment because they tell you something about what the sport means to the people who love it. The arena at the Kokugikan in Tokyo, the home of Tokyo Sumo, a large circular building in the Ryogoku district, a short walk from the stables, fills from mid-morning, well before the first significant matches of the day. The lower divisions compete in the morning and early afternoon, and the audience for these matches is composed primarily of dedicated fans, family members of competing wrestlers, and the kind of serious student of the sport who wants to watch from the beginning. As the day progresses and the division rankings rise, the arena fills further. By the time the top division matches begin in the late afternoon, the arena is packed and the atmosphere has shifted from the focused attention of the serious fan to the wider, warmer energy of a crowd that includes people who come to the sumo tournament as a social occasion, a day out with family, a tradition maintained annually or across generations, a shared experience that connects them to something larger than the individual day. The food sellers move through the crowd, the bento boxes are opened, the beer is poured. The crowd watches the ceremony before each match with the attention of people who understand what they are watching and finds it worth watching. The salt, the stamping, the psychological probing of the false starts, the sudden explosive charge, and the 6 seconds, and the bow, and the fan of the referee, and the quiet return to the starting position. And then the next match. The sumo arena on a tournament day is one of the most genuinely Japanese experiences available in a country full of genuinely Japanese experiences. And that is not a small thing in a country that has been working for 150 years on the question of how to be simultaneously modern and itself. The sumo arena answers this question simply and completely. It is modern, it is accessible, it sells bento boxes, and it is also entirely unmistakably 1300 years of the same thing itself, both at once, as Japan has always been. What it all means. Sumo has been practiced in Japan in recognizable form since at least the 8th century. That is over 1300 years of the same sport conducted on the same clay ring, with the same salt and the same ceremony and the same hierarchy and the same chanko nabe and the same top knots and the same 6 seconds of explosive, sacred, ancient athletic contest, 1300 years. In that time, Japan has been through periods of peace and war, of isolation and openness, of feudalism and modernization, and 2 world wars and reconstruction, an economic miracle, and the full dizzying transformation of a medieval agricultural society into one of the most technologically sophisticated nations on earth. And through all of it, in a low wooden building on a quiet street in Ryogoku, someone has been getting up at 4 a.m. to cook the chanko nabe. The tradition absorbs everything: wars, economic crises, modernization, scandal. The occasional very large man from a foreign country who comes to Japan, joins a stable, learns the language and the culture and the technique, rises to the rank of yokozuna, and then retires and takes tickets at the door as an expression of humility, because that is what the tradition requires, and the tradition is what this has always been about. Not the individual wrestler, not the particular champion, not the specific record or the specific technique or the specific stable or the specific tournament. The tradition, the long, unbroken 1300-year thread of the same thing being done in the same way, for the same reasons, because the reasons have not changed and the thing has not stopped working, and the tradition knows things about strength and discipline and hierarchy and humility and the relationship between the sacred and the physical that it has taken 1300 years to learn, and that it would rather not have to relearn. Sumo is, in the end, not a sport about 2 men trying to push each other out of a circle. It is a story about what a culture decides to keep, about what a people decides is worth preserving across centuries and wars and revolutions, and the full relentless transformation of everything around it, about the things that are worth getting up at 4 a.m. for every morning, without exception, for an entire career. It is a story about the 6 seconds that are worth all the other hours. Between tournaments, the long middle 6 tournaments per year sounds like a lot. It is not a lot when you consider that each tournament is 15 days long, and that the time between tournaments, the 4 to 6 weeks of the Jungyo, the exhibition tour season, and the Heia training period, is when the real work happens. The exhibition tours are exactly what the name suggests: performances of sumo in cities and towns across Japan that do not have official tournament venues. The wrestlers travel together, compete in informal exhibitions, demonstrate technique, sign autographs, and serve the purpose that the Japan Sumo Association considers as important as the tournaments themselves. Keeping sumo visible and beloved across the entire country, not just in the 4 cities that host the major events. The exhibition tour wrestler is a different creature from the tournament wrestler. The pressure of the official record is absent. Wins and losses in the Jungyo do not count toward ranking. The atmosphere is more relaxed, more performative, more generous. Senior wrestlers will extend a match to demonstrate technique, will lose deliberately to a lower-ranked opponent to give the audience the excitement of an upset, will interact with the crowd in ways that the formality of a tournament does not permit. The children in the audience love the Jungyo. They get close to the ring. They sometimes get to hand salt to a wrestler before a match. They go home understanding sumo in a way that watching a television broadcast cannot quite produce, understanding it as something that happens in a real space, between real people, with real force and real ceremony right in front of them. The wrestlers who travel the Jungyo are also navigating the accumulated fatigue of the tournament season, the injuries that the sport produces in quantity, the ongoing management of bodies that are asked to do very demanding things very regularly. Sumo injuries are not rare. The knees and ankles and lower backs of sumo wrestlers carry the accumulated evidence of careers spent in the specific stress positions that the sport requires. The deep crouching stance of the tachi-ai, the low sweeping throws, the lateral movements at significant body weight. A wrestler who is injured must manage the injury within the tradition's framework. Missing a tournament through injury results in the automatic demotion that losing records produce. The ranking system makes no exception for injury. A wrestler who cannot compete and does not compete loses his ranking while he recovers and must rebuild it when he returns. This creates a powerful incentive to compete while injured, which the wrestlers often do, which does not help the injury. The training in the stable continues through all of this, modified, adjusted, worked around, but continuous, because in sumo the training is always the answer. Whatever the question is, the training is the answer. The weight. The weight of a professional sumo wrestler deserves its own examination because it's more complex than the obvious observation that these are very large men. The average weight in the top professional division is somewhere around 150 kilograms. The largest professional wrestlers have weighed over 250 kilograms. But weight alone is not the sumo ideal. What the sport requires is weight combined with mobility, speed, and the specific core strength that allows a large body to be moved explosively and with control. The heaviest wrestlers are not always the most successful. Some of the most dominant sumo wrestlers in history have been large by most standards, but not the largest in the room. What distinguished them was technique, speed, and the ability to use their weight precisely rather than simply deploying it in bulk. Building and maintaining sumo weight is the project of the entire stable system. The diet is calibrated to it. The sleep is calibrated to it. The training, which burns significant calories while also building the muscle that converts into usable power, is calibrated to it. A wrestler who loses weight unexpectedly is a wrestler whose training and eating and sleeping have fallen out of alignment, and the stable notices. The cost of the weight on the body over a career is significant. The life expectancy of former professional sumo wrestlers is statistically lower than the Japanese male average, a reflection of the cumulative physical toll that years of very high body weight and intensive physical training places on the cardiovascular system, the joints, the organs. The Japan Sumo Association monitors wrestler health with increasing attention in the modern era, requiring regular checkups and addressing the long-term wellness implications of the career more explicitly than the tradition did in previous generations. The wrestlers know this. They accept it. It is part of what the career requires, and the career is what they have chosen. What the wrestlers gain in exchange is something that the statistics cannot capture. Membership in a tradition of extraordinary depth and duration, a set of relationships and identities and accomplishments that exist in a dimension entirely different from ordinary professional achievement, and the knowledge that for the 6 seconds that the match lasts, they were fully present in one of the oldest and most sacred athletic contests that the human species has ever devised. 6 seconds, 1300 years. The mathematics of meaning do not always add up in the ways that logic suggests they should. What sumo means to Japan, to understand why sumo has survived unchanged for 1300 years in a country that has changed as dramatically as any on earth over that period, it helps to understand what function the sport serves in Japanese cultural life that goes beyond entertainment. Japan is a country that has a very specific and very deliberate relationship with its own traditions. It knows with the clarity of a society that has been through the full experience of modernization and westernization and economic miracle and demographic decline, what it values about itself and what it does not want to lose. The tea ceremony is practiced in schools and offices not because everyone who practices it is a devoted adherent of Sen no Rikyu's philosophy, but because the tea ceremony is a vessel that carries something the culture considers worth carrying. The same is true of ikebana flower arranging, of kabuki theatre, of the no drama, of the martial arts, and of sumo. Sumo is a vessel. It carries the Shinto connection to the sacred, the Edo period understanding of hierarchy and community, and the relationship between the individual and the tradition, the specific physical culture of a people who have always known that the body can be disciplined into something extraordinary, and the aesthetic sensibility that finds in the briefness and the explosiveness and the ceremony of the match something complete and satisfying in a way that longer, more complicated contests sometimes are not. The match is 6 seconds. The preparation is a lifetime. The tradition is 1300 years. These 3 things are true simultaneously, and in sumo they feel not contradictory, but perfectly consistent. The briefness of the match is the point, not a limitation. The entire elaborate system exists to produce 6 seconds of absolute quality, of being fully present, of bringing everything and holding nothing back. This is what the Japanese word ma means, the significance of what is not there, the meaningful emptiness between the notes in music, the pause between words, the space inside the bowl that makes the bowl useful. The 6 seconds of the sumo match are surrounded by the enormous silence of all the preparation that produced them and all the tradition that frames them, and that silence is as much a part of the meaning as the match itself. Sumo teaches this. The stable teaches it. The hierarchy teaches it. The eating last teaches it. The cooking at 4 a.m. teaches it. The mandatory nap teaches it in a different register. The understanding that rest is not the opposite of effort, but its necessary complement. That the recovery is part of the training. That what you do between the efforts matters as much as the efforts themselves. This is a tradition that has 1300 years of thinking about what it means to build a human being who can do something extraordinary. It has arrived at answers that look, from the outside, bizarre and demanding and unlike anything in the modern world. The fasted training and the enormous meal and the mandatory nap and the hierarchical eating and the ceremonial everything and the 6 seconds at the end of it all. But the answers work. The wrestlers are extraordinary. The tradition continues. The chanko nabe pot is on the stove at 4 in the morning, and somewhere in a wooden building on a quiet street in the Ryogoku district of Tokyo, a 17-year-old boy from Aichi Prefecture is learning what it means to be part of something that was old before his country existed in its current form. He is learning by getting up early. He is learning by eating last. He is learning by throwing and being thrown every morning on a clay ring that has been purified with salt and prepared with care and treated with the reverence that sacred things deserve. He does not know yet whether he will be a champion. He does not know whether the ranking list will ever carry his name at the top. He does not know whether the ceremonies of his retirement will be attended by hundreds or by the modest gathering of a modest career concluded with dignity. He knows that he gets up at 4. He knows that the pot needs to be on. He knows that this is what the tradition requires of him today, and that tomorrow will require the same. He is, in the sumo understanding of these things, exactly where he needs to be. The legacy in the streets. Walk through Ryogoku on any ordinary morning and you will see them. The large men in kimonos on their way to convenience stores, the wrestling stable signs above wooden buildings, the chanko nabe restaurants, their menus in the windows, the photographs of famous wrestlers on the walls, some from decades ago, some from recent tournaments, all with the same elaborate top knots and the same composed expressions. The kokugikan sits at the edge of the neighbourhood, its distinctive roof visible from several blocks away. On tournament days, the area comes alive with the specific energy of people attending something significant. Not a football match or a pop concert, but something older, something that connects the afternoon's entertainment to an unbroken thread of the same thing, being done in the same place, in roughly the same way, for generation after generation. Outside the arena, a monument stands at Ekoin Temple, a short walk from the main venue, honouring the wrestlers and stable masters of previous generations, the people who competed at outdoor tournaments on this ground before the first indoor sumo stadium was built in 1909. The names on the monument are the names of men who competed centuries ago. The sport they competed in is the sport that will be performed this afternoon in the arena nearby. This continuity is not accidental, and it is not maintained without effort. The Japan Sumo Association works continuously to preserve, transmit, and protect the tradition, not as a museum piece, but as a living practice, as something people actually do every day, as something that still produces extraordinary athletes and extraordinary moments, and the specific 6-second shock of two enormous bodies meeting at the centre of a sacred ring with everything they have. The work of preservation is the work of the stable. Every morning, every chanko nabe, every hierarchy meal, every mandatory nap, every junior wrestler at 4 in the morning cooking. The tradition does not preserve itself. People preserve it. Specifically, the people in the stable who choose this life and commit to it and get up at 4 in the morning and do the work that 1300 years of the same work has made clear is the work that needs doing. This is the sumo legacy, not the championships or the yokozuna or the records, the daily, unglamorous, extraordinary commitment to getting up at 4 in the morning and starting the pot. For 6 seconds of sacred contest, for 1300 years, and counting. The rituals nobody explains. There are specific rituals in sumo that the television broadcast shows but rarely explains. and that are worth understanding because each one carries a meaning that transforms what looks like ceremony into something that has taken centuries to develop and that serves a genuine purpose. The shiko, the high leg raises performed before each match, are not merely warm-up exercises or intimidation displays. They are a Shinto purification practice, specifically the stomping of the feet to drive evil spirits out of the ground. The ring must be clear of malign influences before the sacred contest takes place, and the shiko is the physical practice that achieves this. Each high stamp, each deliberate lowering of the foot onto the clay is a small act of purification. The wrestlers do not think about this consciously. It has been part of the pre-match ritual so long that it simply is what you do before a sumo match, the way a musician plays scales before a performance. The practice contains its own history and meaning without requiring the practitioner to be conscious of it at every repetition. The salt throwing is similarly laden. The wrestler takes a handful of salt from the salt basket at the edge of the ring and throws it in a wide arc across the clay surface. The arc is characteristic. Different wrestlers have different throwing styles, different arcs, different amounts of salt, different qualities of the gesture that have become as recognizable to dedicated fans as a tennis player's service motion. The salt purifies. It is exactly the same action that is performed to purify Shinto shrine spaces. The dohyo is a Shinto shrine, temporarily instantiated in this arena, purified and maintained by the wrestlers who compete on it, and the officials who maintain it, and the ceremonies that open and close each day. The raising of the hands before the tachi-ai, both wrestlers extending their arms outward, palms facing up, in a gesture that looks like supplication or presentation, is historically a demonstration that the wrestler is unarmed. In the court sumo of the Heian period, the warriors who competed were men who customarily carried weapons, and the raising of the empty hands before combat was a ceremonial declaration of good faith. This contest will be conducted with the body alone, with no weapons, as a pure test of strength and technique. The gesture has lost its immediate practical significance, but retained its ceremonial one, and it is performed today with the same intention, however unconsciously, as it was performed 1,000 years ago. The gyoji, the referee in the Shinto priest's robes, carries a fan throughout the match, which he uses to indicate the direction of the winning wrestler when the match ends. The fan is not merely a flag or a pointer. It is a ritual implement with a long history in Japanese ceremonial culture, associated with authority and the presence of the divine and the communication between the human world and the sacred one. The gyoji is the third figure in the ring alongside the two wrestlers, and his presence completes the ceremonial triangle. The two contestants and the sacred mediator, whose role is to witness the contest and declare its result with the appropriate gravity and precision. When the match ends and the gyoji points his fan, both wrestlers return to their starting positions and bow to each other. This bow, deep, held for a moment, acknowledged on both sides, is not a formality. It is a recognition. We have just done something together, the bow says. We have occupied the same sacred space and offered our full effort to the same contest, and the result is what it is, and we both acknowledge it with equal respect. The winner bows, the loser bows. The contest is complete. The tradition continues. The night before the tournament. The night before a major tournament begins, has a specific quality in the sumo stable. The training for the day is done. The evening meal has been eaten. The stable is quiet in the particular way that spaces get quiet before significant events. Not the ordinary quiet of a night, when tomorrow is another training day, but the charged quiet of a night when tomorrow is the first day of 15 days of competition that will determine rankings and careers and the ongoing story of who each wrestler is in the sumo world. The wrestlers go to bed early. The preparation that matters has been done. Not tonight, not this week, not this month. The preparation that matters has been accumulating over years of 4 a.m. alarms and empty stomach training and enormous meals and mandatory naps and the daily grinding extraordinary commitment to being ready for this. Tonight is simply the last night of preparation and the first night of competition, and the appropriate response to it is sleep. The junior wrestlers clean the training floor one more time. They prepare the salt baskets that will be filled tomorrow for the morning's training session. They ensure that everything in the stable is as it should be, because tomorrow the stable sends its wrestlers into public competition, and the stable must be ready as much as the wrestlers must be ready. The Oyakata sits alone for a while. He thinks about his wrestlers, who is sharp, who is carrying an injury, who is performing at their peak, who needs the confidence of an early win to find their rhythm. He has watched them train every day. He knows them more completely than most coaches know their athletes because he lives with them, because the stable is his home as much as theirs, because the relationship between a stable master and his wrestlers is not an employer-employee relationship, but something more like the relationship between a father and sons, complicated, permanent, defined by obligation and affection and the shared project of the tradition. Tomorrow the matches will be fought on the clay. Tonight the stable is quiet. The salt is ready. The tradition is ready. And somewhere in a small room in the stable, the junior wrestler who's been getting up at 4 a.m. for 8 months is already asleep, dreaming perhaps of 6 seconds of his own. Not yet, but someday. He is certain of this the way 17-year-olds are certain of things they have not yet had reason to doubt. The tradition, which has seen many 17-year-olds become many kinds of wrestlers over 1300 years, neither confirms nor denies. It simply keeps going, as it always has, as it always will. The wind down, and so we come at last to the end of the stable's day. The evening meal is done. The dishes are washed by the junior wrestlers, as always. The training floor is swept and prepared for tomorrow morning, when the whole extraordinary cycle will begin again at 4 a.m, with the alarm that nobody argues with, and the kitchen that comes to life in the dark. The wrestlers are asleep, the senior ones sleeping the longer sleep of men who have earned it, the junior ones sleeping the shorter sleep of men who will need to be first to rise. All of them resting the specific deep rest of bodies that have been asked to do significant things and have done them and are now restoring themselves for tomorrow's significant things. The doyo sits in the centre of the empty training floor, in the quiet building on the quiet street, in the quiet part of Tokyo where sumo has been practiced for several hundred years. It is, in the late evening quiet, just a circle of clay. But in the morning, when the salt is scattered and the feet are stamped and the ceremony begins again, it will be what it has always been, sacred ground. and somewhere in the warm, dim interior of the stable, the chanko nabe pot is already clean and ready for the morning. The junior wrestler who will cook in it tomorrow is asleep. He will need to be up in a few hours, but tonight, for now, the building is quiet. And so are you. You have come a long way tonight, from the 4 in the morning alarm to the empty stomach and the hours of training and the enormous meal and the mandatory nap and the ceremonies and the salt and the 6 seconds of absolute explosive perfection and the retirement ceremony and the ticket taking and the 1300 years of all of this every morning, without exception. You are warm, you are still. Your bed is considerably more comfortable than a junior sumo wrestler's sleeping arrangements, which is not a competition anyone will want to enter. Let the stable quiet around you. Let the chanko nabe cool in the pot. Let the clay ring rest in the dark. Let the top knots and the salt and the stamping and the ceremonies fade gently back into the ancient tradition that produced them. The alarm will not sound at 4 in the morning for you. You are not in the stable. You are here, warm, still. And the only thing left to do tonight is exactly what the sumo world prescribes after a large meal and a long day. Sleep now. Sleep well. You have absolutely, without question, earned it.